Hello and welcome. My name is Bettina. So this video today is just about how to use a yoga practice to start to heal an unstable pelvis or just to manage the pain that you might be currently experiencing. So I just wanted to take you through first what it is and what causes it, and also some of the main ideas for how to continue your yoga practice if you're feeling any of this pain, and then some poses that you can do to start alleviating some of that pain that you might be feeling. So an unstable pelvis, or SI pain, which stands for sacroiliac pain, is often felt right down deep around that sacroiliac joint. So it's where the muscles of the pelvis join together. And it's different to just general lower back pain because it's really quite specific in that area. We can get pain around it often as the muscles compensate, but if you're feeling that pain, it's really quite deep in that area. The reason we feel it so deeply is because it's not just muscular pain, it's all the ligaments and muscles around the pelvis are compromised because the pelvis isn't aligned as it should be. Now, it's really common in pregnancy, and you can be feeling this sort of pain after pregnancy as well. So sometimes during pregnancy, it's just dismissed as, oh, it's just pregnancy aches and pains, it'll stop once baby is born. And oftentimes it does, but for some of us, it can remain for years afterwards, and you need to really think about alignment in order to bring that pelvis back in line. So as well as happening in pregnancy, some people feel SI pain from sitting in a chair all day long. So it's a balance. The pelvic stability is created by a balance between flexibility and strength. So obviously for those who are sitting all day, they might actually have the pain because the muscles have become so tight that so all the different muscles around the pelvis, so we've got glutes and hamstrings and the piriformis and the adductors, all are working to stabilize the pelvis. But when these particular muscles get too tight or are released too much and are out of balance, then they're no longer holding the pelvis as it should be. So if you're sitting in an office chair all day, you may be feeling that pain because you're out of balance in those muscles. On the other hand, if you're an elite gymnast or even an advanced yogi, you may be feeling that pain because you've opened a muscle too much. So you might find that another particular muscle is too tight and it's making an instability or creating an instability there. So SI pain can be excruciating. And I know some women who, especially during pregnancy, have had to use crutches or a wheelchair because it's become that bad. So it's going to depend where you are in your journey. If you're at that point, you're probably being advised to be quite still. And pregnancy is a different issue in that we have relaxin working in our bodies as well. So it's relaxing everything and opening everything. And sometimes movement is actually going to make it worse. If you're down on the other end and it's just a pain that sort of flares up for you every now and then, I want you to use the pain as a sign to work with your body. So if you're feeling the pain in a particular pose, so any of the things that we're going to do today, if it flares up, I want you to back off. That pose is not right for you. If it's making your body feel good and it's working, I want you to stay there and breathe with it. Now, the reason we do this, and sometimes in yoga, pain or discomfort is actually a sign to press and to move forward. But in this case, SI pain is a definite indicator of back off, that's not working for you. And it's because it's going to be individual. So some people who come to me and they have SI pain are because they've got tight hamstrings and weak adductors. But others might have the opposite. So it's very unique pain and you need to work with where your body's at. So please be mindful of that before we move into anything today. So let's start by coming down onto our backs. And I want you to bring the feet into the floor and just rest the palms on either side of the body. And I want you to start by just noticing, does this feel good for your back or not? So Is that joint feeling comfortable in this position or is it not? And then as you inhale, I want you to draw the core in towards the floor. So this little gap between your back and the floor disappears. So it's tilting the pelvis towards you. And then as you exhale, release and tilt the pelvis back and almost create a little bit of an arch, so a little bit of a stretch through that back. And then inhale, rock forward. So going very easily if you're feeling any discomfort. And then exhale, gently pressing away. And I want you to notice where it feels the best for you. So find the position or the tilt of your pelvis and where it feels best. And then once you've found it, I want you to keep that in mind because that's where you need to hold your body during the rest of the practice. So for instance, for me, it's definitely a tuck. I need to engage the core, draw down with the tailbone. And this is going to be common for most people, but I just wanted to show you because sometimes we get a unique case where that doesn't feel the best and you need to find what works for you. So it's really for me drawing in with the core, with the pelvic floor, and also gently drawing down with the tailbone and the glutes. And that keeps my pelvis secure and stable. And I need to work with this throughout the rest of the poses. So if you just come back up, what I want you to keep in mind is any of the poses during yoga that open this way and require twisting are going to be asking your pelvis to hold still and stable. So what you need to be mindful of is either not pressing too far into it or really contracting those muscles around the pelvis, supporting with the core, the pelvic floor, and the glutes, drawing down to protect that area to really stay strong and stable. So for instance, for me, something I notice is that whenever I'm in pigeon, the tendency is to want to rock to this hip. And it's kind of cheating in your body because it looks like I'm actually further in the pose when in fact I just came down and compromised my pelvis by coming to the side. So if you can, instead of trying to compromise, support with props, so whether that be a cushion or a block or a bolster under the hips, so that you can keep that square alignment. That's going to support you further. To that end, instead of doing a pigeon in class, you perhaps may want to just work with taking one ankle across the opposite and drawing the leg in. So whenever your teacher takes you to a pigeon during class, you may come to this instead, especially if you're feeling that pain worse when you move into that position. So just drawing it in, we're releasing through the hip and through the glute here, which can be one of the muscles that needs to be released or strengthened in order to support. So just change sides, and again, easing off if it's not feeling good for you today. Draw the shoulder blades down, keep that front foot flexed, and then release the legs. Just draw the left knee into the chest and take the right long, trying to keep those hips stable and steady. So working at engaging the core, the muscles of the thigh, pelvic floor, and then swapping sides. And then inhale, coming back up. So let's rock and roll our way up. And we'll come to our tabletop. We are going to work in up cat, down cat, but again, I want you to be mindful of this may not feel good for you. So if you inhale and come too low, so let that belly sink too much, you may find it's not comfortable anymore. So you need to just back off a little bit. And in the same way here, you might need to engage that pelvic floor to really contract and support the pelvis. So just inhale as you rise and then exhale as you round. So SI pain is not a condition that you want to move fast. So skipping the power flow classes if you can, and just moving mindfully. And then tucking the toes under, drawing back and pedaling out through either side. So it might feel good for you to pedal, it might not. And have a play with where that pelvic tilt is. So just like we did on the ground, see if you can bend into the knees, tilt further,
and then stretch out through the back of the body. So you may find that you need to bring a bit of a round in, or you may find you need to lift a little bit higher to find that sweet spot where it feels good. And then bend into the knees, step the left foot forward. You can support if you need to as you come up. Now again, in our high lunge, find that tilt. So do you need to tuck under a little bit? Do you need to activate this thigh of the back leg to really be able to tilt the pelvis forward? So the tendency is we can be back here. Maybe you need to draw it in to feel good. And then bend into that front knee a little bit and adjust. Maybe pressing that back heel down a bit stronger. So it's finding that balance of muscles around the pelvis to really support and keep it stable. Now, if I was in a yoga class at the minute, you may be moving into a warrior one here, which would mean grounding down through that back heel and then squaring back off. I found my body no longer likes warrior one very much. It's too much pressure on my pelvis to stay steady, and I often find I just end up with that back pain again. So you may want to just come here to your high lunge instead of moving into that variation. You can add the arms if it feels good, or just keep them on the hips. And then bring the hands back to the hips. Step that front foot in. We'll take a brief moment in our Tadasana. So again, you may be comfortable with the feet at hip distance, or bring them in together and find that alignment once more. So if you found you needed to tuck and lift, do that. If you find you needed to relax the glutes a little bit and find a little bit of a scoop, do that if it feels good for your SI. Of course, shoulders back and down, fingers towards the floor. Inhale, hands to heart. Let's inhale the arms up, and then exhale, fold forward. So folding over those legs again, you may need to bend more so that the pressure is taken out of this lower back. And then you can gently lift through the tailbone, just lengthening through the hamstrings. This time, let's step the left leg back and come up to our high lunge on the opposite side. So readjusting, just as we did before, into that pelvic tilt to find where works for you. So I know for me, it's actually this upper thigh that gets quite tight. And I know that it makes me want to scoot more, but I need to tuck. So I need to feel the stretch here, which kind of feels a bit yuck. But I need to feel into that stretch and be okay with the stretching here so I'm not overstretching in the SI. And stay with the breath. Bring the hands to heart, bring the hands back down, and step that knee back, coming all the way down to the floor. So in a regular yoga class, there's generally quite a lot of opening poses with the legs. And especially if you're pregnant, we can often find there's an overuse of this sort of thing. And if you have SI pain, that's the worst thing you can do, because your body, the pelvis is already open, the body is already open, it doesn't need to be opening any further. It's actually making that pain worse. So what we want to focus on instead is keeping things in line and really supporting, especially through the inner thigh, because we can engage the inner thigh and the pelvic floor to support those muscles of the pelvis. So what might work for you is actually doing a forward fold with straight legs. If your hamstrings are quite tight, remember you can support with a bolster or block. And what that does is it brings that tilt back into your pelvis. So instead of rounding, you can lift up and forward because it allows the bit of space for the legs. So you might just gently keep the chest lifted and just find a stretch in the legs. So if any stage it's feeling uncomfortable for the back, ease up, of course. And then inhale, gently rest it up. Let's bring that right leg in. Now, I said before that any twisting is obviously going to require the pelvis to hold still and stable. And when you've got SI pain, it's usually a case that that joint is not stabilized by the muscles around it. So twisting may be the worst thing for you.
But it really is something that can help to release those tight muscles if that's what's causing your pain. So it's worth having a go and seeing what's working for your body. So let's support our body to twist though by allowing the pelvis to twist with the spine. So instead of them grinding together, it's more of a fluid movement. So if we bring that right leg in, take the left hand behind, inhale up, and then exhale, just gently bring the elbow into the inner thigh. And feel like you're moving from the pelvis first and then allowing the back to twist. So again, if it's not feeling good, ease up. Skip the twist today. And then exhale, release back to the front. Take the right leg out in front, left leg in, just as we did before, right hand behind. You might want to inhale and lengthen through the spine and then exhale, elbow to thigh, just a gentle twist. Now you'll notice that my bottom leg is still active, the toes are drawn back towards me. That's because these legs are still engaged. We want the muscles of the legs engaged so that they're supporting that pelvis to stay steady and stable. And then gently release back to the front. And so the final thing I'd like you to keep in mind if you are experiencing SI pain is just your general posture. So just like we did in Tadasana, really drawing down with that tailbone, in with the core, and finding that tilt that works for you and trying to keep that in your daily life. So if you're sitting in a chair, see if you can come back to the pelvic tilt and engaging those muscles that will help that pelvis stay stable. That's probably going to give you the biggest benefit as opposed to doing extra exercise. You can do an hour on the mat, but what is going to make the most difference is the 23 hours you spend off the mat. So things like if you're rolling over in bed, rather than just flipping the legs over and opening the pelvis, bringing the knees together, engaging the core, and moving the legs over. Now, if you've got severe SI pain, you're probably doing that naturally anyway. Using pillows to support the body when you sleep so that you can keep the pelvis in line, whether it be a cushion behind you, cushion between the knees, to really keep the legs quite stable. So thank you for joining me today. I hope that this has helped you understand where the pain's coming from and what you can do to start alleviating and hopefully curing some of the pain that you've been feeling. If you'd like to practice with me a little bit more, I have an online studio. It is especially for mums, so I have lots of pregnancy yoga, that early postnatal period, baby wearing, yoga with kids, and a space on Facebook for us to connect. So we don't miss out on that before and after class chatter. You can find it there on our Facebook group where we're chatting all the time. So thanks for joining me. I appreciate you practicing with me today, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.